Hello, BookTube. It's Tuesday, and that means Tag Tuesday, when most of BookTube drops what they're doing and does tags. It doesn't mean quite as much to me, or quite the same thing to me as it once did, but nevertheless, it is Tuesday, and I was tagged. So, I thought I would do it. This should be fun. The tag is the King of Horror Stephen King tag, which was created by the great Jess Bookgirl TV. She has a great BookTube channel. And I was tagged by Kevin Toll at Kevin Toll Reads, and certainly he has a channel as well, some kind. And I think he tagged me mostly to yank my chain just a bit. Because, as you're going to see by the end of this tag, I'm not the biggest Stephen King fan in the world. It's counterintuitive thinking that would lead you to tag me in this. So let's just go through and see what we can make of the Stephen King tag. This is question number 1. How did you get into reading Stephen King? I am not into reading Stephen King. I hate reading Stephen King because he is perhaps one of the 5 worst authors to have started a career in the 20th century. But if we're talking about how I came to be reading him, I encountered Carrie, the novel Carrie, in a library, and I read it. The assistant librarian was curious to know. It had come in the buyer's latest box, and she was curious to know, what is this? There's a young person. It's supposed to be about a young person. Should it be in the young person section? It seems kind of creepy. Would you mind reading it? Give me your thoughts on the matter. So I did. So that was my first. That was how I got into reading Stephen King. Is that I read Carrie. Then question number 2 is, what was the first Stephen King book you read? And that was the first Stephen King book that I read. And for parts of it, I thought, okay, there's some potential here. It's weird that this author appears to be his debut. It's weird that a debut author would get all the way through a major publishing house without ever being subjected to an editor. But somehow it did happen. Of course, back then, 50 years ago, I had no idea about the indie world. It didn't exist. The indie world didn't exist. So I thought it was kind of weird that so many large chunks of this book are inept. But there is a kernel of interest here. So that was the first one that I read. Then question number 3 is, have you read a Stephen King book published in the year that you were born? Now, as all of you who watch this channel will know, that is 1997. Since I am 28 years old. And that would mean the 4th Dark Tower book, Wizard and Glass. So, yes, I have read a Stephen King book from 1997. It was, needless to say, awful. It's an awful book. Not only is it incomprehensible on its own, which is a mark of a bad book, but it's also largely incomprehensible even in context of the Dark Tower series. This is the kind of book you write if you know that 10,000 readers are going to buy it anyway, no matter what. And if your editor knows that, and if your publisher knows that, this is exactly what will happen. This or worse. And question number 4, which of his books do you prefer to collect hardcover editions, paperbacks, or doesn't it matter to you? Actually, the ideal form of a Stephen King book that I have never yet found is for it to be 1 paragraph at a time on each square of a roll of toilet paper. That would be just ideal. That would be absolutely ideal. I've yet to find a Stephen King book that was printed that way. I keep hoping. Question number 5 is, how many of his books are on your bookshelf? Print and paper books, I have a copy of Salem's Lot. And nothing else. Question number 6. Stephen King is known for long and gory novels. Which of his novels was tough for you to read? All of his novels have been tough for me to read because, starting with Carrie and then moving on, they are so bad. They are so bad. And they get progressively worse. Now, Stephen King fanatics will say they get progressively different. I might say different, not worse. Nothing God ever wrote is bad. But they do get progressively different, and then they will haul in every single little detail of his autobiography that is not bolted down. Well, here was a divorce. Well, here was a child had the hiccups. Well, here was a drug addiction. Well, this was a different drug addiction. Well, here was a million different details from his autobiography to explain what they at the most will say is the uneven nature of his books, rather than ever calling his books bad. They will just say it has an uneven nature. I don't suffer from that euphemism. This is a horrible author. He is terrible. So all of his books are tough to read, whether it's the early ones that are just bloated and navel-gazing, or whether it's the later ones that are bloated, navel-gazing, and also self-referential. The later books live in a shared universe in which Stephen King, the author of the book you're reading, is also a famous author of the book you're reading. Which is one extended jet-fueled ego trip. And after book number 4, this author realized, well, there are two paths that diverge in front of me here. I have known some authors, and I've read some real authors, and I know what it means to be a real author. It's a lot of work. Even to write a dippy novel, it's a lot of work. But there's another path, and that's not to work at it. Just blow it out of your ass. Just half-ass it. If the circumstances will let you get away with that and make you independently wealthy, the gross national product of a nation, then why would you do otherwise? Well, you might if you had artistic integrity, but you won't otherwise, and he didn't. He faced that path in the Yellow Wood, and he chased the well-trodden path all the way to Hollywood and beyond. So all of them were tough for me to read. All of them. They are all absolute garbage. Then question number 7. Have you DNF'd a Stephen King book? Well, oddly enough, considering my last answer, no. No, I never have. I tend not to DNF books. And especially when the author has become a cultural phenomenon. And if Carrie didn't do it, then certainly the next 3 books made him a cultural phenomenon. I thought it would be a cultural phenomenon of short duration. I had no idea that 50 years later I would still be talking about this guy. But in all that time, as he was growing as a cultural phenomenon and making commercials, and especially as his stuff graduated to the big screen, I felt that I had to read every new book. And that's not any kind of doff of the cat in honor of Stephen King, because I felt that way about a large handful of authors who just weren't any good, at all, but they were in one way or another a cultural phenomenon. Like, for instance, the 2 other names that come to mind, and that I thought Stephen King was one of them, and I thought, surely I won't be talking about either one of them in 50 years, so I won't be talking about him either. I mean, Tom Clancy and Danielle Steele, both of whom were cultural touchstones of their time. You could say the same thing for Nora Roberts, but reading all of Nora Roberts is a fantasy. She writes 6 books a year. So I long since gave up on that. But Danielle Steele, Tom Clancy, and Stephen King, I didn't skip their books. So, and didn't DNF them either. Then question number 8 is, have you read his books in publication order? Well, as a result of the last 2 questions, yes, I have. Stephen King comes out with a new novel, and I read it. That has been just a steady thing. The underpinnings of that are weaker now than they ever have been. Because A, I don't anymore believe that he's actually going to die. And B, I have mentioned on this channel before, those of you who are new to this channel, and I would imagine having Stephen King's name in the title of this video might bring some new people to this channel, God forbid. Remember, don't like the video, don't share it with your friends, and above all, don't subscribe. Okay? But anyway, if you're unfamiliar with this channel, I am a book critic, and have been for a very long time. So when it comes to reading his books in publication order, well, when Stephen King comes out with a new book, I would read it and just file it away. But that is weaker than it's ever been, because he's largely beyond criticism now. Certainly he's beyond sensible, legitimate criticism. He gets absolutely fawning profiles of press releases, really, on the front page of the New York Times Book Review of his latest piece of crap. But they don't review him anymore. Not at all. He's an institution. So they don't review him anymore, nor does anybody else. Actually, ironically enough, it's the diehard Stephen King fans that give his newest book, whatever it is, the closest thing to a critical evaluation. They're the ones who you would think would be the least likely to review something objectively, but they're actually the closest to it in terms of weighing what it does and doesn't do. But mainstream media, especially the mainstream book chat world where I live, it's pointless even to write about him, just like no one reviews the new Danielle Steele novel. They don't bother to do it. What difference would it make? There's no critical conversation that exists around these things. Which means that every year I am a little more tempted to just skip whatever he's doing. I haven't done it yet, but every year I am a little more tempted to do it. Let's see here. Question number 10. Name a book he has written that other people liked that you didn't. His books are full of fans. Almost every book that he wrote has a legion of fans behind it. They're all terrible. All the books are terrible. This question applies to everything he has ever written. All of which is terrible. It's just god-awful. Horrible, stupid, derivative characters. Dumb, ridiculous plots that go nowhere. Of course, Stephen King, even among his fans, is famous for the fact that he can't end a book to save his life. But his middles are nothing to write home about either. I have said all along about him. I have said since the late 1970s, I have said, this guy missed his calling. He is a terrible writer. But he's a pretty good idea man. The old-style movie studios used to have people like that. Idea men. Who, ironically enough, especially in television, were actually women. But they were called idea men. No one was expecting them to flesh out a story, much less write it. No one was expecting that. But you needed the idea men at first to come up with the ideas for the story. Then you'd get your in-house writer to write it, and then you would get Sherwood Anderson to polish it. So you could put his name on it. Script by Sherwood Anderson. But I don't know that Hollywood has idea men anymore because Hollywood seems pretty sold on the idea that the best way to make a movie is to remake a movie, which means by definition you don't need an idea man. But once upon a time they did have them. And Stephen King would have been a great idea man. Just fantastic. He could have earned a living. Probably as good a living as he has now. A pool, Topanga Canyon, the whole 9 yards. Because he's a really good idea man. He notices, or maybe he has a team of people who notice, but he seems to do it. He notices what would be a great idea for a book. Just the idea. Just that. Not anything else. Just that. So he notices, for instance, the age-old American suburban custom where when a pet dies, the kids put it in a shoebox and bury it in the backyard. And the idea man in him says, what if those pets aren't really dead? That's a terrific idea. It's not a story. It's not a plot. But it is a terrific idea. He notices, at the dawn of the technology, he notices that suddenly everybody he sees when he's walking around has one of these little cell phones. Some kind of handheld phone. What if they were dangerous? What if they were evil? That's a great idea. Of course, it didn't take him to say, what if clowns were evil? But it took him to say, what if the clown that gave you nightmares as a child was an evil you needed to fight as an adult? What if you needed to band back together and fight that evil as an adult? That's a terrific idea. And so on and so forth. Right down the line. So on and so forth, right down the line. Most of the ideas he had, I'm not talking about The Gunslinger, the Dark Tower series. There are no good ideas there. It is just pure junk. And some of the ideas are buried under so many layers of crap that you can barely make them out. I think one of the reasons why, for instance, The Stand skyrocketed in new sales during COVID was because COVID made people see the terrific idea at the heart of it that they hadn't seen because it's buried under layer upon layer upon layer upon layer of greasy, horrible, fat, overfed, quivering, stupid, pale, idiotic prose. So they didn't see it. You lose sight of it after a while. But he's good at that. He's good as an idea man. For all I know, he might still be good at it. But no, he had to go on and write the books. So So I've never liked any of them because I'm not looking at the ideas. I am forced to read the books, the actual books, actual prose and paragraphs. But so I hate them all, and everyone loves them. So that's the end of that question. Then question number 11 is name a book you think is underrated. I don't. It is not possible to underrate a Stephen King novel. They are awful. They are absolutely awful. If you could read them without thinking through your nostalgia glasses, if you could just look at one of his books and say, okay, well, yes, there's a mystical or a horror thingamajig in this book. But what about if you take the thingamajig out? Are any of the human characters acting in a way that humans act? No, they aren't. And don't say they're not acting in a normal way because of the thingamajig. I'm talking about in relation to the thingamajig. Are they acting in any way like humans do? No, they are not. No, they are not. If you are faced with the supernatural end of the world, dark forces everywhere causing forest animals to panic, do you quote the opening to Scooby-Doo, the cartoon? No, you don't. No, you don't do that. Do you quip one-liners in a burning building? No, you don't do that. No, it's not just the mystical thingamajig. All of these books are overrated. All of them are, because they are all garbage. So I think that it's not possible to underrate them. So let's just move on. Let's move on to question number 12. Creepy characters. Little author insert here. Another favorite thing for Stephen King to do. Which Stephen King characters would you like to have dinner with? Ordinarily, in response to questions like this in a tag, where tags inevitably ask, what 3 fictional characters would you like to have dinner with, or what 3 fictional characters would you like to go on a trip with, or anything like that. And invariably, in response to this question, I say that my answer is none, because even the most well-portrayed character in fiction, think of a well-rounded character, a character who is portrayed really well. The main character in All the King's Men, for instance, by Robert Penn Warren. Not that Stephen King fans are going to know what I'm talking about, but the main character in that book. Think about a really well-rounded character, and then think about how much is missing. I mean, I know that I'm mocking Stephen King here, but really I could broaden the frame just a bit here and mock all the made-up stories. Fiction is just so ridiculous. It's just so ridiculous. You want a well-rounded character, read a biography. You'll get a well-rounded character, unless the biographer is really bad. So ordinarily, in response to this kind of question, I say none of them, because I don't know. I know 1/10 of the things about them. I know 1/10 of what gives them their reality. Even the best drawn characters, I know 1/10 of what gives them reality. I could name pretty much any fictional character, but think about, for instance, a fictional character that all of us will know, Gandalf from The Lord of the Rings. Think about him. You might say, well, he disproves your case. He disproves what you're saying. He's extremely well-rounded in Lord of the Rings. No, he's been in an old man's body for 1,000 years in Lord of the Rings. You forget that part, and then he seems, okay, he's a crotchety old man. If you remember that part, then you realize he's extremely poorly drawn. Extremely, not poorly, but scantily. You know nothing about him. Nothing at all. None of those 1,000 years has any bearing on how he acts in Lord of the Rings. Same thing with Aragorn. And if we're going to stick to Lord of the Rings, he's 80 years old. It doesn't seem it in any way. Not in any way. Anyway, that would ordinarily be my answer, and that would be the reason why. Because even in the best drawn made-up stories, the characters are nothing. They are nothing. So how could I imagine having a meal with them? Think about the first 10 fictional characters that come to mind. The question here is, who'd you have a meal with? Think of the top 10 fictional characters that first come to your mind. Do you know anything about what they eat? Or how they eat? Or how they behave during a meal? Do you know anything about that? No, you don't. They're that poorly drawn. So, but in this case, I go one further because, of course, Stephen King characters aren't drawn at all. It's not that I know only 1/10 of what they are, so how am I going to have them to dinner? It's that I don't know anything about them at all, except the rubric cliche that is stamped on their forehead. Nice but gullible. A little sketchy. Tormented hero. I have no idea how to serve tormented hero wine and calzones. I have no idea how to do that, and there's nothing in a Stephen King character any more than that. So none of them. Question number 13 is: has Stephen King inspired you to start reading and writing? Most decidedly not. Either one. No. Although this question touches tangentially on the one thing I will give Stephen King credit for, and it's a huge thing. I give him all the credit in the world for it, and it is enormous. And that is the reading part. Because he has inspired thousands and thousands, for all I know, tens of thousands of people, especially men, to read with passion and dedication and interest. Now, I might think that some of those men pull that like a comfort blanket over themselves and never venture outside it, but a lot of them do. And it wouldn't matter anyway, because some reading is better than none at all. And Stephen King has been responsible for that to an absolutely enormous extent. I have always said I would definitely subscribe to a big statue of him for that. For that reason. He got me into reading. Put that on the base of the statue. Don't identify him. Especially don't list his crappy books. Just say he got me into reading. I would help to pay for that statue right outside, somewhere in Maine. I would pay for that statue. He has done that legitimately. Definitely on BookTube, but also off BookTube. He got people into reading, and he also kept people reading. And if you can give them a foothold in that world, the world of reading, well, then books will do the rest. Unless they say, no, I'm just going to read Stephen King. I'm going to read him, I'm going to reread him, I'm going to rank him, I'm going to re-rank him, I'm going to tier list him, I'm going to bottom tier list him, but I'm not going to read anyone else. If they do that, well, okay, then he hasn't been a doorway to the broader world of books. But if they don't do that, and I would say most of his readers don't do that, well, then they'll move on. They'll move on to Dean Koontz and Clive Barker, and who knows from there? Who knows? There's not one of those authors that they're going to move on from, including Stephen King. There's not one of those authors who isn't, in their interviews, urgently urging them to read broadly. Well, if you fall in love with reading thanks to Stephen King, and then you have a period where you're falling out of love with reading everywhere else except him, he's your lifeline, he's keeping you there, you're probably going to be dedicated enough to him to watch some interviews. And in those interviews, he's not only thanking you for reading his books, because he seems like a gracious enough person, but also urging you to read more, widely. Don't read just more of my books. Read lots of stuff. Who knows? Who will ever be able to calculate the full extent of the benefit of that approach? So I'll give him credit for that. Unfortunately, he has also inspired a lot of people to write like him, which is bad, because garbage in, garbage out. But anyway, I'll at least give him credit for that. I give him all the credit in the world for the reading. Question number 14 is: if you were able to meet Stephen King, what would you say? I would say, please retire. Like you've promised to do 3 separate times. Please retire. Announce your retirement and then retire and stick to it. You have more money than God. You have 100,000 books. Just stop. Just stop writing these horrible, fly-blown, garbagey books. Stop doing it. You already have a Lifetime Achievement Award. The Literary Society's bend the knee to you. Your books are in curriculums. You're loved and quoted and tier listed all over the world. That ought to be enough. If I met him on the street, I would say, please stop writing. In my own defense, though, I would also have said that in 1980. If I met him on the street in 1980, I'd say, please stop. Devote your life to something else. Go into Hollywood. I won't object to you in Hollywood. But anyway, that's what I would say every single time. Question number 15 is: have you ever been to Bangor, Maine? I have been to Bangor, Maine many, many times, including before it was a one-person, one-industry town. I've been to Bangor, Maine before those wrought iron gates, before that house, before it was a site of a pilgrimage. It's a lovely town. Let's see here. Question number... Have I missed one? Did I miss one of these? I think I did. There's so many questions in this thing. I think I missed one. Yes, I did. I missed question number 9. What Stephen King books would you like to read but haven't read yet? I don't want to miss any questions because I'm never going to do a Stephen King tag again. What Stephen King books would you like to read but haven't read yet? That's pretty easy. His final one. Be a bit of a shame, might shed a single tear if it was posthumous, but his final one. I haven't read that yet, and I'm always hopeful for it. But anyway, let's keep going. Question number 16, which do you prefer, his books, or the question says which do you prefer more, his books or movies, but prefer means like more. So you wouldn't say which do you like more. So which do you prefer, his books or his movies? His movies, of course, because with a movie, the movie is always better than the book. Well, in this case, you've got nowhere to go but up. In this case, even if you give him a partial writing credit, you've still got other people doing the writing. And you've got a director, and a director of photography. So, the movies, definitely. Because the books are just worm-eaten mounds of garbage. They are pure crapola. But with a movie, well, the movie's idea, the whole idea of a movie is to get at the heart and essence of the book you're adapting. You can't possibly do the whole of it. Famously, it has always been said it would take 10 hours to film one chapter of a good book, much less a bad book. So instead, you've got to get at the heart of it. You've got to go back to the ideas at the heart of these things and flesh out a movie from there. Touching on the text as much as you can, but a good director, a good storyboarder or story editor on a set will throw out the stuff that doesn't work, and they will be ruthless about it. They might, like in Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings movie, they might move things around quite a bit in order to keep as much as they can, but they'll be ruthless about what to get rid of. And the more Stephen King's prose you get rid of, the better. So the movies are always better. Question number 17 is name your favorite Stephen King movies. Here, this would be a toss-up for me between the 1979 miniseries of Salem's Lot that really is effective. It is so much better than the book. It really is effective. Weird casting. Weird cast in that movie. I don't know that anyone is cast well in that movie. Maybe James Mason, because James Mason is so great that he's never miscast in anything. But aside from him, I don't know that anyone isn't miscast in that movie. And I guess I'm fundamentally incapable of taking David Soul seriously, but it's not just him. Even when Lance Kerwin was in his heyday in the 70s, I was eagerly waiting for that heyday to be over, and so on and so forth throughout the movie. There are a whole bunch of tried and true character actors all throughout the thing, and they do a really good job. It's just, I don't know. I thought it's very effective. Very effectively done. There would also, the toss-up here would also be something that I'm not sure you could call a Stephen King movie. I guess maybe you could, because he wrote it. Storm of the Century, which I have praised before on this channel. It's pretty good until the ending. Stephen King cannot write an ending to save his life. At the ending of, I won't give it away, I won't spoil it, but at the end of Storm of the Century, it turns out that this whole elaborate layup that the bad guy does for the course of the whole thing, born in sin, come on in, the whole thing, the bad guy could have achieved his goal by simply asking. Go up to someone, to a young boy, and just ask him. He could have achieved that in 1 minute 200 years before the start of the show. Instead, also, he doesn't need the Storm of the Century to do it. He doesn't need that at all. None of it. No, the ending makes no sense at all. None whatsoever. King just doesn't care. And, again, to revert to my old idea men didn't care. In the old movie studio system, the idea man didn't care. We have old studio memoirs where the idea man would actually he would come up with a humdinger of an idea. And he'd be asked, well, how does it end? And he'd say, how the hell do I know? Pay me. How the hell do I know? I'm not going to end it. An ending's not an idea. Here's how you get things off the ground. And Stephen King would have been good at that. But Storm of the Century, Salem's Lot the same way, oh my God. But Storm of the Century, even more exaggerated, just underscores that he has no idea how to land the planes that he can get off the ground. But Salem's Lot, the original Salem's Lot, and also Storm of the Century, the mean, they're both miniseries, they're not movies, but I think I can squeeze them in here. It's a technicality. Then question number 18 was added by Kevin Toll because he remembers the significance of the number 19 in King's oeuvre. So he adds a question, and his question is about the way you read the Dark Tower series. And he's really good on the subject, on the answer to that, to his own question, because of course the Dark Tower series is a series of wretched, horrible, just garbagey, primary color, regurgitated fantasy gimmicks that goes book 1, book 2, book 3, and so on. But the mythology, the larger mythos of Dark Tower extends its tendrils into a whole bunch of other books. And fans have conducted elaborate breakdowns of what that means in terms of getting the whole picture of the Dark Tower mythology that extends so far beyond the actual Dark Tower books that you definitely don't want to just read them. And Kevin, if I remember correctly in his video, he says, it's totally up to you. You can read the Dark Tower books without chasing them into 19 other books. He breaks down a reading order, and I have a reading order of my own for reading the Dark Tower books obsessively in that kind of level of detail. I have a short version and an extended version of the ideal reading order of the Dark Tower books. The short version is read Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. Oh, really? Does it have a Dark Tower connection? No, it doesn't. It's a great novel that you're never going to read as long as you are constantly gumming the icing off the oatmeal cake and not eating the cake, as long as you are constantly obsessing on Stephen King, as long as you are doing that. And Kevin doesn't do that. He reads lots of other stuff. There are plenty of people out there, I'm sure you know some, who just read Stephen King and that's it. They read him and reread him, and they don't read anything else. So my scheme for reading the Dark Tower books in minute detail is to read Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. Do that. Read Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. And then if you want a much more extended reading plan for the Dark Tower books, read the Aubrey and Maturin books by Patrick O'Brien. Start with Master and Commander and read through the whole series in order. Does those have a Dark Tower connection? No, they don't. No, neither one of them does. They're just infinitely better than anything that Stephen King could ever write in a million years. You could make a jet fuel rocket composed of creativity and shoot it up his asteroid belt, and he still couldn't write a good book, much less anything even close to the level of literature that I'm talking about. So if you want to invest an entire year, a new year is coming, there are a whole bunch of Stephen King fans out there who are just gearing up to spend a whole year borrowing in on the works of the master that they've read a million times before and that weren't worth reading once. If you're looking ahead to the year and you're thinking what kind of extremely annotated, down deep in the details reading plan for the Dark Tower extended universe I should use, there's my suggestion. In January, read Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. And then, starting in February and moving for the rest of the year, read the Master and Commander series. Read the Aubrey and Maturin novels. Not only at the end of 2026, if you did that with an open mind, not only would you thank me, but you would also not go back to Stephen King. You could smile about him, nostalgically. You could say, he was with me through some of my darkest reading hours. You could say, when I was a kid, when I was a boy turning into a teen, and no one I knew was reading, and all of my friends were mocking me for it, and I was thinking about drifting away myself, I found different seasons. And there was no way I was not going to do that. There was no way I was not going to have that fun, so I kept in. And then 10 books later, I suddenly got an idea to read, I don't even care what it is, the Executioner series, Louis L'Amour, Tolstoy. I don't even care what it is. All I know is that he kept you there when you might have drifted away. So that's fine. The end of 2026, when you have finished with, the Yellow Admiral and whatnot, you're at the end of the Aubrey and Maturin books, and you've read Jane Eyre, at the end of 2026, when you now know what reading can really be like, outside of the world of Stephen King, well, you're not going to want to go back to that world. And I might as well just state that up front. You're not going to want to. But you could still feel nostalgic for it. Very much so. You could smile and say, yeah, he got me through some rough times. I felt accompanied. I had a writer I could count on. Okay. Nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Just don't go back. That's all. You don't need to. There's so much more out there. And if you spend 2026 tier listing a crappy author you've read 20 times before, you are wasting what little reading time you have. Anyway, if you enjoy it, that's fine. If you enjoy it, that's fine. I'm just telling you, there are pastures out there that not only am I saying you would love, but Stephen King is saying it too. Anyway, then the last prompt here, not that any of you have got this far, is to tag people. And I'm going to use the usual lazy man's load here. I'm going to say just do this. Definitely do this tag. Because Stephen King is practically a lingua franca in the literary world, so you'll certainly have shots to fire. I think that Kevin tagged me largely because he already knows what I think about the master. It's good to get it off my chest, as I have periodically over the last 9 years on this channel. But I'll wrap this up for now, and I'll see you next Tag Tuesday if anybody tags me. Thank you, BookTube.